Today in Bible class, we were talking about how to argue correctly, and we were studying fallacies because every Friday in class I do Fallacy Friday. And one of the things that we talked about was the fallacy of the complex question, which is a yes or no question that's thrown at you in order to try to trap you. And so, for example, it would be something like this. If somebody came up to me and said, "Chan, have you stopped beating your wife?" Notice how the question is worded. And if I said, "Yes, I have stopped beating my wife," then I'm admitting that I beat my wife. If I say no, then I'm also admitting that I'm beating my wife. This is what we call a complex question. And the complex question doesn't have anything to do with the word complex. Doesn't have anything to do with being difficult. It's the questioner knows what they're doing. Now, this thing right here happened to Jesus in Mark chapter 12. Jesus is asked by one of the teachers of the law, and it even prefaces it by saying they came to try to trap him, to trick him. And they said, "Teacher, is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" Now, that may not sound like a trick question, but it actually is if you understand the context and if you understand the background. If Jesus says yes, it is lawful, many people back then looked at Caesar as kind of a god figure, in the sense that paying tribute to him or taxes would be a form of worship. So if Jesus says yes, he's advocating for worship of Caesar, which a Jew can't do in the sense of following the Ten Commandments, because one of those commandments would be, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Well, if he says no, it's not lawful to pay taxes to Caesar, then what you have here is a possible uprising, because then he is giving permission for his followers not to pay their taxes. So if Jesus says yes, he's in trouble. So if Jesus says no, he's in trouble. So what does he do? Well, Jesus catches on to their hypocrisy, and he says to them, "Why are you trying to trick me? Bring me a denarius." And a denarius was a type of coin. And he said, "Whose picture and inscription is on this?" And they said, "Caesar's." And then he says, "Well, give to Caesar the things that belong to Caesar, and give to God the things that belong to God." This is a brilliant answer. And on top of that, after he finishes saying that, the gospel records, and no one dared ask him any more questions. We normally don't think as Jesus as being the smartest man that ever lived, but he was. His logic was airtight. You could not trick him or trap him, even though they were experts in the law. They couldn't do it. And so Jesus would see through some of the hypocrisy that these teachers of the law were trying to do. Now, let me show you one that Christians might face. There's a trick question out there that goes like this: can God make a rock so big that he can't lift it? Now, that's the question, but it's usually set up by something like this. They might say, an unbeliever might say, "Well, you think that God is all powerful, right?" And the Christian responds by saying, "Yes." "And you believe that God can do anything?" And the Christian rightly responds by saying, "Yes." The problem with that is, once you say yes to those questions, then they throw this complex question out to you as, well, then can God make a rock so big that he can't lift it? Now, notice this is a yes or no question. If you say yes, God can make the rock so big that he can't lift it, then there's something that God can't do. If God can make the rock really big, but not big enough so he can't lift it, there again is something that God can't do. So we have something that God can't do, Therefore, God is not all-powerful. The problem with this whole complex question is it's a trick, and it's based on a misunderstanding of what it means for God to be omnipotent. When we say that God is all-powerful, we don't mean he can actually do things that are logically impossible. God does anything that's consistent with his nature and that is logically possible. So God can't kill himself. God can't cease to be God. God can't lie. God can't create a square circle. God's nature is consistent with the Logos, if you will. So really, it's a trick question, and it doesn't have anything to do with strength. It's really asking, if God got in a fight with himself, who would win? Or is God stronger than God? So this is one of those complex questions that's meant to trap and trick Christians. So don't fall for it.